Hello, my friends. Jerry Rosa here in the Rosa String Works Man Cave. Before we get into the final part of this video series, I wanted to address some of the negative comments that we received in part 3. Now, you might say I'm psychic because I knew we were going to get a bunch of negative comments in part 3. It was almost like I baited you in there, and you fell for it, and you did make the negative comments. It doesn't matter to me. I don't mind the negative comments because I win both ways. As long as you're making comments, it helps the YouTube algorithm. So it doesn't hurt my feelings at all that you make all those negative comments. You can just knock yourself out and just have a good time with it. But I do think there is a disservice if I don't address what you were talking about, because many people don't know right from wrong on these things, and they'll think that these negative comments were correct in what they were saying. And nothing could be further from the truth. They were 100% wrong, 100%, not 99%. So let me explain what was going on there, what they were commenting about, what they didn't like, and maybe what you didn't like either, in the previous video. But I'm going to explain why I did, what I did, and why I would do it again. Okay, the first negative comment, of course, is it was painful to watch. You treated that 1941 Martin guitar really badly, beating on it and all that stuff. And then maybe the next comment was, why didn't you use a penetrant? Why do you beat on it? Why don't you use penetrating, fluids and things? Okay. Well, let me explain it to you like this. We'll talk about penetrating fluids first. First of all, if you know anything about penetrating fluids, they don't work. That's the first thing you should know, is they don't work at all, really. How do I know that? Because I do have a metal shop. I've done metalworking more than I've done woodworking in my life. In other words, I've done more metalworking projects than I have guitar repairs. Believe what you want. I've been doing it since I was a little kid. My dad had a lawn service. We had parts stuck all the time on, rebuilding machines, rebuilding engines. I've been doing this my whole life. So I know penetrating oils, they give you a warm, fuzzy feeling that you're trying to squirt something down in there and it's going to penetrate and it's going to come loose. But the truth is, you could probably count on one hand in my whole lifetime the number of times it actually worked. Generally speaking, with penetrating oils, it'll take 3 or 4 days before they even begin to work, if they work at all. They just don't work. That's just the bottom line. It just gives you the warm, fuzzy feeling that you're trying this thing called a penetrating oil, and they don't do anything. That's the first problem. The second problem with using a penetrating oil of any kind on a 1941 Martin guitar is exactly what you were talking about. You said you were treating it awful mean. Well, you would be treating it way worse than I treated it if you put penetrating fluids on there, because it would penetrate into the wood. If you know anything about wood, it's a mass of soda straws, and that penetrating fluid would soak down through those soda straws in that wood, and it would turn it black or dark, staining around each one of those tuning pegs. Every one of them would have a big black oily stain around it, and it would most likely, almost guaranteeing you, take the finish off. So if you want to treat a 1941 Martin really badly, put some penetrating oil on there. That'll do it. I guarantee you. So that's why I did not do that. Now, the next thing about taking it loose the way I took it loose, first of all, you might say, well, why didn't you just press it out with a press? Well, the problem with a press is it has no conscience. A press, you don't have any feel for it. It's a mechanical machine with tons of hydraulic pressure pushing, and it's going to push and break something. Something is going to give, but it might be the wood before the metal, if you do it that way. So, and then, you might, I don't know any other way you could try to do it other than with a press or something like that. Okay, so why did I do it the way I did it and hit it? Why didn't that cause a problem? Well, let me explain that to you, because there's, again, I've been doing this kind of thing for 40-some years. I know what I can do. I know my limitations. I know what I can get away with. I know what I can't get away with. Now, when you lay that peg head in your hand, Your hand is immediately a shock absorber. So when you hit it, it gives. It instantly gives. There's nothing there. Like if you put the peg head on something solid like a table and then hit it, there's a good chance you're going to break something because something's going to give. But by putting it in your hand, first of all, you have a tactile feel of how hard you're hitting it. If it's not hurting my hand when I hit it, it probably isn't going to hurt the peg head. But you still have to know the right technique and the right way to do that. So instead of taking 3 or 4 days with penetrating oils to get it to break loose, I broke all 6 of those loose in under 15 minutes. And I did not cause any damage to the guitar at all. So the reason I bring this up is not to address the negative comments. It's to set the people that are here to learn straight so that they know why I did what I did and why I didn't do what the knuckleheads out there in the peanut gallery said I should have done. The next knucklehead comment was, you can tell that neck angle ain't going to be right. He didn't put a wedge underneath the fingerboard extension. And, by the way, all these negative comments had lots of thumbs up around them, like, yep, that's right. That's what you should do. You should do that. Well, let me explain to you. The reason I don't put a wedge under the fingerboard is I probably have seen more Martin guitars than any other luthier around. I mean, at least as many as any luthier around. I'm sure there's some people out there that have seen more. There's no doubt. But I've probably seen more than 99% of the people watching my videos. And I have never seen one single quality Martin guitar with a wedge under the fingerboard. Not a D45, not a D35, not a D28, not a D18, or any of the other Ds, or any of the Os or double Os. Never seen a wedge under the fingerboard of the quality. So why would I want to put a wedge under the fingerboard? Can you explain that one to me? And all those people that thumbs it up, can you explain it to me why I would do that? Well, let me explain it to you. No, you don't do that. You have a long plane there, and that is the plane of the neck angle. And then when it gets to the body, you just press that down. There's always a hump there. There's on pretty much every guitar. Now, electric guitars put a wedge under there a lot of times, or, lesser guitars will do that. Cheap guitars will do that a lot of times, but the Martin guitars do not do that. So, therefore, I'm not going to take a 1941 Martin guitar and put a wedge under there when it didn't have one from the factory. Now, do you know why I did what I did? And spoiler alert, but as you'll see in the end of this video, it turned out pretty near perfect. So now I'll let you get into the video. That's why you're here. This is the most dangerous way to do it because I can make a mistake now and screw this whole bridge up. It would be a real tragedy, but it could happen. So I'm going to just do my best and do the safest thing I can to make it work right. So that's it right there. So we're good. We can take the string, loosen the strings up and take them out. I'll draw the line across there better with a straight edge. Get it just perfect. I get it right on that line. We're going to do a long saddle on this because that's what these have on them. See, that line's pretty close to the front edge of this, but fortunately that's the front edge, so we'll be routing back further here, Now, was the old one that way? No, the old one was a little further back. But it was probably not perfect intonation. This is going to be as perfect as you can get it. Well, my friends, it's the next morning. So this is the 5th morning in a row. And I believe I have my router set up to cut this slot. And I got to be honest, this is a mind-blowing effort here. This will either be perfect or it won't be. And that's the only options you have with this. And I'm going to go all the way through the bridge. We're putting a long saddle in it, like it had in it. And all I can say is, wish me luck. You know, if it pulls away from this guide, then I'm in trouble big time. Here we go. Okay, contact. Well, that went just as good as it could go. I routed that out at about roughly 80 thousandths. I'm going to take another 80 thousandths pass. The way I'm doing that is I have a depth gauge in here. I just use two of these the thick part of these razor blades, and go in there and adjust it by that thickness. In other words, I raise this deal right here up, put the razor blades in there just to get my thickness, drop it down on that, tighten this up. It's a process. Then you take the razor blades out, and then you just make sure that that's tight, of course. Then you just pull the base to that stop. So I'm going to unlock that and pull this base up to that stop, and that's another 80 thousandths roughly thickness that we can go deeper now. And here we go. Well, that looks, I would say, very near perfect. In fact, that may be all we need to do. Wow, that's really nice. Let me just check the depth of it. If it's 160 thousandths, we'll probably go with that. Wow, that's way less than that. 118 thousandths, so it's about 1/8 of an inch deep. But honestly, that's about where the old saddle came through this, you know, on the length. In fact, well, actually, I'm sure it did go down that far. They cut this one down so much. Let me see here. Yeah, my saddle's already going to be longer than that one by at least 3/8 of an inch. So my saddle's already going to be longer. That looks deep enough to hold it, especially if we glue it in, and most of these kinds of saddles need to be glued in. Now, I'm not a big fan of gluing them in, but this type of saddle, that's kind of the way you have to do it, because they just don't work the same way. I think that's going to work, so I'm going to get busy and start building the saddle blank now. Okay, the way I'm going to build the saddle blank, or at least start with, I think, is that we know that this little saddle we had was just about the right height. So I'm going to put this down in the groove, and that gives me 262 thousandths on that end. I'll check this end. 216 on that end, but let me check it again. It says 243 now. Boy, it varies a lot. 263 again on this end. Yeah, real close to that. So let me check this end again. The end's much lower for some reason. I don't know why. Doesn't seem like the saddle's that much shorter. And 240 there. So I think what I'm going to do is just make a saddle that's about 265 thousandths. We should be good if we make it at that height, I think. So I'm going to get that made. Well, my friends, the unexpected encounter is that I, don't have a whole lot of deer antler anymore, and it's hard to find one that's long enough to make a long, straight saddle. So I found something here I think will work, but it sure isn't as easy as I thought it was going to be. I've got to get every bit of this out of this that I can. So I'm going to have to saw that off straight there. I think it's going to work. Well, I measured this gap at 103 thousandths, and that's exactly what I'm at on this, 103 thousandths. So theoretically it should fit. When you're doing woodworking, it generally doesn't always go like that, but let's see. I haven't actually tried to fit it all the way in yet. I just kind of touched it there just to see if it was close, and it looks like it's might just work. Might be a hair tight yet. Might need a spring pass. See, that's nice and snug. You don't want them loose, especially on this type of saddle. That's just a hair off, just a hair off. And, because we had to go twice, depth, sometimes there's a little bit of a lip there. So I'm trying to rub along that wall to see if I get rid of that lip. That might have done it. Yeah, not quite going to the bottom. Almost. Not quite. But I think it's catching on that little bit of a lip. Oh, it's so close. Trying to work it through there one time where the end is kind of acting like a little chisel, if you will. That might open it up. Might open it up enough to make it work. Yeah, like I said, it's really close to going. There, that might have been it. I think that did it. Yep, I think that got it. And now it's perfect. You know, it's absolutely perfect. There's no flex in it whatsoever. You know, where you can do it a lot of different ways, but you know, a lot of times you'll create a looseness. You can see there that it's absolutely super perfect tight, and I didn't have to force it down in there. I just had to, you know, press it in there. It didn't need any extra, you know, amount of force. I'm trying to make sure I got it centered over the slot. We already know that this saddle fits it pretty good, so I'm just going to kind of take advantage of that, and you know, we'll obviously be conservative and we'll cut it a little tall before we string it up, but this will give me a good ballpark. Can I get it back out? I'm sure I can. It's just real snug. Okay, so I have a line there, and I'm going to obviously cut above that line, then we'll go from there. Well, normally the way these saddles are put in, you pretty much have to glue them in place, but this one fits so well, I probably won't glue it, which is good. You know, if you don't have to glue them, it's better. But this one fits really perfect. I mean, you couldn't get it to fit any better than that at all. I think we'll go ahead and string up at least 2 strings and check the action and see if we're in the ballpark before we go any further. Okay, my friends, I have this tuned up to the E, and I'm just checking the action. I'm sure it's a little high. Yeah, we're not real crazy high. We only had about 95 thousandths. That's not terrible. And we're at about perfect on this one, about 80, maybe 85. Now, granted, it's probably going to pull up just a little bit more whenever I get all the strings on it. Debating on whether I want to take it down just a few thousandths. It's really hard to take it down just a few thousandths, honestly. Trying to decide. I guess I'll go ahead and put all the strings on it, see what it looks like, and then I'll know what I really need to take it down if I need to. So I guess I'll string it up. I'm not going to bother showing you all that. You've seen it a bazillion times. I'll turn the camera back on just as soon as I get her strung up and tuned up. Well, I checked the action on it after getting it all tuned up, and quite honestly, it only raised it about 5 thousandths on the treble side. The bass side seemed to stay exactly the same. So I'm just going to call that good enough. It's really not bad. In fact, it's just about where I would normally set them. So now I'm going to do the lazy man way of conforming the ends of this down to the bridge. Now, I'm pretty confident I can do this without any problem at all. But if you have never done this, I wouldn't recommend it. I'm not even sure I recommend it for me, so I'm going to take my time and do it as very small bites. Well, believe it or not, I did that, and I don't think I touched the wood at all. So, yeah, I mean, I'm used to doing that with a Dremel tool. I'm good with the Dremel tool. I've been using it for 40 years. So I'll leave it up to you whether you think you should do it that way or not, but I probably wouldn't if you've never done it before. You know, you want to practice some if you don't have a lot of practice with it. I can still feel a little bit of a high spot here, so I'm going to go with that just a little bit. Gonna quit while I'm ahead. Well, I think that's it. The only thing I want to do is oil this bridge yet. I didn't oil it. I should have done that when I had the strings off it the last time, but I expected to have to take the saddle back out, and I really didn't have to. So, you know, it is what it is, and I can oil it now just about as easy. Just a little bit more effort, but not a lot more. In other words, I'll take this brush and get in here and oil it like this. Get under there, and it'll be just fine. It's a lot less work than taking it all back apart again, I can tell you that. Then I'll just take and wipe that all off. I still got to get around the edges, but that's okay. I want to wipe this off before it dries on me. And in between these strings, we can dry it off like this. I'm going to put a little oil on the edge here, and I think I'll just put a drop of oil on this and use it on my brush. There's a dry spot right there, little dry spot there, little touch up dry, you know, places where they've been scuffed and the finish is scratched a little bit. You can pretty much make all those kinds of things go away with this kind of oil. Linseed oil is the same way. If you've got a finish that's got little scratchy little marks like that on it, just take this oil, rub it on there, and those marks just virtually disappear in many cases. All right, there's a spot up here, and I think this could have been done during the neck removal. It's right in here. It's a possibility that it was from that. I didn't notice it before. It might have been there before. It might not have been. But regardless, I'm going to put some oil on it. I think that'll make it look better. In fact, I'm just going to go ahead and put oil all along both sides and around this area where we took it apart, and that'll just kind of hide any of the evidence that it was taken apart. Well, with that, I think we're done. Can't see anything else that needs to be done. All right, let me check the tuning and we'll play it for you. Well, my friends, off camera, I checked the intonation, and it's very good. It's within a cent or two on either side, on all the strings. It's very close. Very good. Singing my brand new song I wrote. When I look in the mirror, I see an old man there. He doesn't look like me. He's got too much gray hair. Then my mind drifts back to 19
63, when my brother and I built our first house up in those sassafras trees. And then I look in that mirror, and I see that old man there. He doesn't look like me, no, he's too unaware. Now I'm back in 1983. We got a new house now, and our family is complete. And then I look in that mirror, I see that old man there. He doesn't look like me, it's almost too much to bear. Now I find myself in the present day. You've got gray in your hair, I guess time has made it that way. And then I look in the mirror, and it slowly dawns on me that we've had a good life as God meant it to be. I'm going to get rid of that mirror. Friends, if you've enjoyed the video and you liked seeing how I put this guitar back together, it was a much bigger job than I anticipated when I started. I mean, a neck reset and a bridge, a new bridge, that's a big job in itself. But then having to mess with the whole tuning keys and all that, and the fret leveling and the, scraping the fingerboard and the whole bit, it's up in very, very good shape, and it ought to last, I would say it ought to last 20 years now in the condition it's in, if not longer, before it's going to need anything else. So if you've enjoyed it, how about a thumbs up? If you're not yet subscribed, please do that, because occasionally I will be putting out more videos on instrument repair, but for the most part, from this point forward, it'll be mostly farm videos that you'll be seeing here, and miscellaneous kinds of videos where I fix miscellaneous things. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you on the next video.